This is Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest. Joining me today is the Vice President of Marketing and Corporate Development for Energy Fuels, Mr. Curtis Moore. Curtis, how are you?
I'm doing great, Gerardo. How are you?
I'm well, staying inside, washing my hands, wearing my mask if I do go outside, and busy as always. Everyone healthy on your end?
Yep. Everything's good over here, and we're moving things forward pretty well with Energy Fuels these days too.
That's excellent news. You had some news here recently that I want to touch on. It was received well by the market. You're strengthening the balance sheet, eliminating debt, and of course, growing the uranium inventories. We could get into that. But before we do so, I want to ask you to just give us a brief macro overview of what you're hearing in the uranium space. A lot of excitement, a lot of chatter. What's come your way that you believe would be of note?
Well, I mean, of course, the biggest news in the uranium sector has just been all the production cuts that we've seen around the world, and that includes Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan produces about 40% of the world's uranium, and their country has basically been shut down now for a month or two, I believe, and they've extended their shutdowns again. Their previous guidance was to produce about 60 million pounds of uranium this year. Well, if you shut that down for 2, 3, 4, 6 months, you can see that is a huge bite taken out of the supply side on uranium. So I think that uranium prices have been uranium has been one of the better performing commodities out there this year. They rose 30% there in that March-April timeframe. They kind of flattened out, even drifted down a little bit. Spot prices did, but I think there's a good chance that there could be another leg up, since we've actually seen prices rise for a couple of days now. Small bits, but yeah, I think these supply cuts are starting to take effect.
Good stuff. Let's talk rare earths while we're talking macro. Obviously, geopolitical tensions between the U.S. and China continue to escalate. There doesn't seem to be a lot of goodwill from either side right now, which of course means that at any point, and we've seen this, back in 2010, at any point we could have another situation where the rare earth supply chain is weaponized in a more aggressive fashion by China. Energy Fuels made it a point to note that it was making an entry into the space, and it thought it could do so at a relatively low cost with a good return on investment. What are your thoughts about the rare earth space, and what is Energy Fuels doing to advance that goal?
Yeah, definitely. So you're exactly right. Rare earths are definitely seeing some renewed interest these days. And I think I told you probably before, we've been looking at rare earths for probably about a year now. I can't get into too many details yet, but we're making some pretty phenomenal progress, we think. Our sort of our phase one of our rare earth, entry into the rare earth space is to basically take rare earth ores and other rare earth streams, rare earth bearing streams, and process those to remove the uranium and thorium from those streams, which is, kind of our basic business as a uranium mining company, and then produce a rare earth concentrate that can then be sold to a rare earth separation facility. So we're making some great progress both on the technical and commercial aspects of that. And, we're really trying to make this into a cash flow generating business in the very near term. The nice thing about it is that it's, what we're looking to do won't cost a lot of money. We're basically doing what we do, for our main business, which is recover uranium. This is just recovering uranium and other thorium and other, radioactive elements from these streams and producing a concentrate that the separator can deal with.
So it sounds like we should get more specific soon. Would that be accurate?
Yes, I think so. Absolutely.
All right, let's talk uranium. You've been growing the inventory, and you've also done a great job of strengthening the balance sheet and cutting down on debt. Can you speak to each of those?
Sure. So, we're back to producing a little bit of uranium at the White Mesa Mill. Last year, we focused on vanadium, which, of course, that was a huge success for us, except on the commercial side. We actually produced 1.8 million pounds of V2O5 last year, in a new process at the White Mesa Mill, and it was done very low cost. It was done, we got the highest purity product that we've gotten in the mill's history, but unfortunately, the price of vanadium collapsed. We're sitting on 1.6 million pounds of V2O5, but on the uranium side, we're back to producing a little bit of uranium. I think our current guidance is 125,000 to 175,000 pounds, and when you add that on to our inventory that we reported at the end of 2019, we're going to end up 2020 with almost 700,000 pounds of uranium. So even at today's prices, we're talking, $22-23 million of uranium inventory that's liquid. We could sell it tomorrow if we wanted to. But we're also very hopeful that uranium prices are going to be going up as we've seen, and they're going to keep going up, or there's going to be some demand coming from the U.S. government, for instance, to supply that U.S. uranium reserve, which would be hopefully at much higher prices than we're seeing in the market today. So it's a great, it's some great levers that we have to uranium prices that we can capitalize on immediately.
Well said. Let's talk about the debt reduction. You've done a brilliant job of continuing what you said you would do. Can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah. So we have these convertible debentures that come due at the end of the year, and so we're addressing them. We're paying them off, and our intent is to pay them off with cash. And we're also trying to avoid big disruptive financing or anything like that to address those. So we're trying to address them in a quiet and in a reasonable manner, and we still expect to be debt free by the end of 2020. And that's an enviable place. There's a lot of companies out there, and I won't name names, but they're incurring a lot of debt right now, and they're the interest rate and the carrying cost of that debt is high, and it's and it may hit them all at once. They may not have a big debt burden right now, but those numbers just keep adding up and up and up, and it's going to have to be addressed at some point in the future. And our goal is to be debt free and to not incur any other debt until we have a very, very clear pathway to being able to finance that debt and pay for that debt, whether it's through a contract with a utility or something like that. So it's tough for explorers and developers to have debt, and we're very proud to be able to get rid of that.
Well, you know what Mr. Buffett says about the tide coming in, right? That's where you see who's swimming naked.
Right.
One last question for you, Curtis, before I let you go. I want to thank you for your time, but one last question. This administration and frankly, the presidential candidate Biden, both sides have been pretty eager and enthusiastic about promoting a clean energy stimulus package that, of course, will involve infrastructure. But we know that with 232 and the recommendations that were made, that there was supposed to be a big emphasis in reestablishing the uranium sector here in the United States. Have you heard anything else from the administration in regards to that?
Well, of course, the administration and the Department of Energy, they are pushing hard for this. The kind of phase one of their effort to bring this back is the creation of the U.S. Uranium Reserve, and they're looking for $150 million per year. Now, unfortunately, in today's a bit of a toxic political environment in the United States, if one side is for something, the other side is automatically against it. So now, with that being said, there is bipartisan support in Congress to fund this reserve. But in the first version of the House bill that they just approved, there was no funding for the uranium reserve. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't be added later. The Senate's still working on that. We're very optimistic that something will come of that. And look, what we're talking about here and the results of that nuclear fuel working group, it's nonpartisan. We're pretty sure that same report is going to be very useful, to a Biden administration, if there is a Biden administration, right? I mean, this is not, going to be the end of the story at all, because, it's, like you said, both sides are in favor of clean energy. Both sides want to make sure that our military has, the material it needs to perform its mission. And a big part of that involves uranium. So there's the funding of the uranium reserve. Another thing to look out for is this renegotiation of the Russian suspension agreement that's going on right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, I can't get into it too much, but right now the governments of the U.S. and Russia are in heavy negotiations on how to extend the RSA. This is an agreement that has limited imports of Russian uranium into the United States to 20% of our needs. The administration wants to reduce that over the long term. And so I think they're kind of putting the screws to them, which is good. We need to be able to build up our own domestic capabilities and not just be reliant on Russia for our nuclear fuel. And Commerce did put out a report just a few weeks ago that basically said that if the two sides are not able to come to an agreement by August 4th, now that's 2 weeks away at this point, right, or less than 2 weeks away.
Right.
The U.S. Department of Commerce is willing to consider actually canceling the entire agreement, which they can do unilaterally, which would become very interesting for our market, because if the Department of Commerce cancels the RSA, that means that tariffs of 115% would come into play for all imports of nuclear fuel into the United States. That's big. And I don't think anybody really wants to see that, least of all U.S. utilities. And look, we don't want to see utilities have to bear that. But we also need to make sure that Russia agrees to reasonable terms under which they can import uranium and nuclear fuel into the United States. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on here in the next few weeks.
Curtis, thank you for that. I said I was going to let you go. I'm not letting you go yet. I did have a reader that wrote in and asked why insider holdings of energy fuels where they are, and I have not looked recently. It sounded like they're not very high. Can you speak to that really quick? Can you respond to that?
Yeah, sure. I think part of it is that, if you see companies that have very high insider holdings, oftentimes those executives, they received like founder shares, or they had a whole big chunk of the company when the company was first founded. In our case, we only started getting shares as bonuses, as a portion of our bonus, just a couple of years ago. And and look, we're not, as much as I would love to go get, multi-million-dollar bonus awards and shares, that's just not, it takes a while for that to build up. We have had a lot of just open market buying by both board members and executives. I mean, and that's what we're doing. And we're not a bunch of super wealthy people out there. We each of us, we have significant holdings, at least from our own personal standpoint, that represents a fairly big chunk of our own personal net worth in some of our cases, myself included. And so I mean, it's oftentimes when you see those big insider holdings, it's because those shares were granted to those executives either through large bonuses or founder shares. We just, haven't had that in our company in place for except for the last couple of years.
So what you're telling me, Curtis, is that you and the team did not allot yourself 20 million founder shares at a tenth of a penny each?
Exactly. Now, I would, if anybody on our board is listening, I mean, I would very much encourage them to, grant us $20-30 million just a performance bonus, and shit. I'll be happy to take that.
Forward the interview, Curtis. Forward the interview. Curtis, thanks a lot. I really appreciate the update. That was thorough, well-spoken as always, and insightful. Thank you, and we'll chat again soon, okay?
Yep, sounds good. Thanks again, Gerardo.
Thank you.